Welcome to the deep dive. Our subject matter today is intensely personal and, frankly, a little meta.
Yeah.
We are embarking on a deep dive into the very systems, the fundamental mechanisms that are designed right now, as you listen to us, to capture and hold your attention.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically investigating the engine that drives this entire informational era, an engine fueled, really, by your focus.
It's the perfect, almost ironic starting point, isn't it? I mean, we're performing the very act of engagement right now, creating, hopefully, compelling content using a hook to expose the machinery behind it all.
Exactly.
So our mission today is pretty comprehensive. We want to unpack the paradox of modern digital life. We need to understand how creativity went from, I guess, pure expression to this huge industrial operation.
Right.
And why attention has become the planet's most fiercely competitive currency. And crucially, what are the true, measurable psychological and societal costs of, well, existing within a world completely optimized by algorithms for infinite engagement?
Yeah, and I think the most important place to begin is with that philosophical tension that our source material raises almost immediately. When the entire world is competing for a finite amount of screen time, when every single creator and brand is fighting for just one click, is that intense competition healthy? Or is it, fundamentally toxic?
And maybe even more importantly, how does the individual human being, the person just trying to share a story or start a business or even just connect with a friend, how do they compete with machine learning algorithms?
It seems impossible.
Well, these systems have billions, literally billions of dollars in R&D behind them. They're trained to be inherently more alluring, more persuasive, and just more engaging than any spontaneous human interaction could ever really be.
It's completely unequal playing field.
It absolutely is. And this deep dive, I think, requires us to recognize that every pixel you consume, every single scroll you make, every second of emotional energy you invest in a platform, it's all part of a transaction. Your curiosity isn't just idle thought, it's actually collateral. Your emotional response isn't just some private feeling, it's currency. We have to stop viewing our digital existence as just free time,
Yeah.
and start recognizing it as an economic landscape where the commodity being relentlessly traded is your focus, your attention.
Okay, let's shift our attention then, maybe ironically, to the magnitude of this market. This is section 1, the financial playing field attention as currency. I think understanding the scale is necessary to really grasp the gravity of this competition.
Indeed. And we are definitely not talking about some niche market here.
No. When we talk about the global entertainment and media industry, or E&M, that massive umbrella covering films, TV, streaming, music, live events, gaming, digital content, all of it, we are talking about an economy roughly the size of, well, a continent's GDP. It's huge.
Yeah, the source material estimates put the global E&M sector at around US $2.8 trillion in 2023. That's just an absolute colossal figure.
And the growth isn't slowing down, is it? Projections indicate this market is going to surge, possibly reaching $3.4 to $3.5 trillion by, 2028 or 2029?
That's right.
That kind of rapid trillions of dollars growth signals, I mean, it's like an industrial gold rush.
It really is. And even if you just zoom in on the U.S. segment, that market alone is still massive, estimated around $649 billion.
Wow.
And while, sure, many industries have seen volatility, subsectors within E&M are huge and actually relatively stable. I mean, look at movies and home entertainment alone pulling in over $100 billion in 2023.
Just that one piece.
Just that one piece. Or the live entertainment sector, which is projected to hit $270 billion globally by 2030.
So the takeaway here is pretty clear. This isn't about garage band creativity anymore, right? This is big, industrialized business where the stakes are astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
But the crucial observation, which the source material really stresses, is that the sheer size of this global wealth pot tells us almost nothing about how that wealth is actually distributed.
Right. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. We have to look at the winner-takes-most dynamics and the resulting massive wealth gaps. This is an economy defined by an extreme power law distribution.
Yeah, I found the specific data on actors just profoundly illuminating. If you look at the median hourly wage for actors in the U.S., and these are people actively working in the profession, right?
Yeah, working actors.
In May 2024, that figure was only $23.33.
Just think about that for a second. That means half, literally half, of all professional working actors make less than that per hour.
That's incredible.
And if you narrow the focus even further just to the film industry, the median hourly wage was as low as $16.70 back in 2022. I mean, that is barely a sustainable income in most major U.S. cities.
Definitely not.
Certainly not for a high-aspiration career that demands constant training, availability, auditions.
And yet, on the complete other end of that scale, you have the megastars pulling in $70 million, $100 million, maybe even far more in a single year. That chasm is almost incomprehensible compared to, more stable industries like engineering or finance.
And we can actually quantify this. There's a powerful inequality metric called the wage Gini coefficient.
Okay.
For actors in 2023, the wage Gini was 0.646. Now, to give you some context for just how extreme that is, the average U.S. occupation has a Gini coefficient around 0.476.
So much lower.
Much lower. The entertainment industry's Gini is closer to the kind of wealth disparity you might see in a highly polarized emerging economy. It basically means the system is fundamentally engineered for extreme disparity and wealth concentration right at the very, very top.
And that concentration isn't just about merit either, is it? These sources mentioned the persistent gender pay gap, even among the elite.
Oh, yeah?
Studies showing women stars in certain Hollywood datasets earned about $1.1 million less than male counterparts with similar experience. So the inequality is layered.
It's deeply layered, and this is why we absolutely have to address the idea of creativity as labor. There's this deep cultural myth, right, that creative work acting, streaming, making music is just play or something people naturally do for fun. We really need to dispel that.
Yeah, it's work. We're talking about industrial-scale labor, often operating 247. It involves scripting, intense editing, advanced analytic to track performance marketing, constant scheduling. It's a grind.
And maybe the most draining component is what sociologists call emotional labor. That act of performing authenticity or vulnerability or even outrage on demand. The creator isn't just making a product, they're performing a relationship with their audience.
Performing a relationship. That's interesting phrasing.
And if we accept that performing emotional transparency and consistency is labor, then maybe that emotional fatigue we feel after doom scrolling is just the cost of watching someone else's continuous shift work.
Wow. So if there's all this industrial scale labor happening, who's really capturing the value generated by all that human and, emotional output? That leads us straight to the role of platform middlemen.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the revolution that happened. Digital platforms, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, they basically demolished the old traditional gatekeepers.
Yeah.
The big record labels, the major film studios.
Yeah, they disrupted them.
They did. But they didn't really decentralize power. They just replaced the old lords with new, arguably even more powerful, digital lords.
So they promised democratization and access. But really, they just built a new infrastructure for extracting value.
Exactly right. They become the new gatekeepers, controlling discovery and monetization through their own proprietary algorithms. And the fees they charge are substantial. YouTube, for example, takes a hefty 45% chunk of the ad revenue generated by a creator's content.
45%.
Yeah. And Spotify pays artists fractions, tiny fractions of a cent per stream, often requiring hundreds of thousands, even millions of streams just to earn something approaching a living wage.
The sources use a pretty powerful analogy here, don't they?
They do, and it's stark. The modern creative economy really mirrors feudalism.
Feudalism,
Yeah. Creators are like the serfs, constantly laboring away on the algorithmic land, often just for the currency of exposure, right? Just to be seen.
Yeah, exposure bucks.
Exactly. While the platform owners, the lords of data, they collect the massive rent on the digital harvest. The platform mediates absolutely everything, ensuring that true success is less about innate artistic skill and maybe more about relentless consistency and algorithmic compatibility.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly for Section 2. Redefining value entertainment versus credentialed professions. We've established that the entertainment industry is this brutal, volatile powerhouse. The question now becomes why its financial and risk profile differs so dramatically from other, maybe more socially necessary careers.
Well, the difference fundamentally lies in the skill supply gap and, crucially, how we quantify it. It's incredibly difficult to measure skill in creative fields because it's so subjective, right? And constantly changing. There's no standardized test for charisma or viral timing or artistic genius.
And the supply of people wanting to do it. It seems infinite. Everyone with a phone is potentially a creator now.
Precisely. You have this immense, almost inexhaustible global supply of aspiring creators, all chasing a tiny, tiny number of high-paying roles. And this is where those superstar effects really dominate. The rewards are captured by a very small number of individuals due to factors that are largely external to formal training, things like fame, network effects, brand recognition, and just sheer luck or timing.
So if success is really determined more by visibility and timing than formal training, the kind you get with a degree, it actually becomes less important to your market value in this world.
It often does, yeah. Creative industries frequently lack the formalized credentials like medical licenses or bar exams that stabilize other high-value sectors. Those credentials act as a necessary barrier to entry, controlling supply.
Okay, let's contrast that volatility then with a key credentialed profession,
Okay.
like teaching or medicine or law.
Okay, take teaching. Contrast that median actor wage of, what was it, $23.33 an hour?
Yeah.
Contract that with a teacher's salary. Now, while teachers are often underpaid relative to their education level, we know that, but their salary distribution is far more compressed. There are very few mega earners in teaching, and the system has a much more predictable floor and ceiling. Most teachers fall into a relatively stable middle-class income band.
Right. The job might not make you rich, but it generally provides predictable stability.
That's the key trade-off, isn't it? And then in medicine, specifically for doctors and surgeons, or in licensed fields like law, the credentials and the stringent licensing act as essential barriers. This controls the labor supply, ensuring higher median earnings and much lower volatility compared to entertainment.
So entertainment offers both this incredibly high potential upside, the multi-million-dollar superstar, and an extremely low floor, those vast numbers of struggling median earners. It's a characteristic unlike almost any other major profession.
Exactly.
And this volatility brings us right to societal value and this education dissonance. Why does society still place so much emphasis on formal education if, the uncredentialed entertainer can potentially out-earn the credentialed professional by several orders of magnitude?
Well, historically, society values education because it signals a few critical things, right? Credibility, mastery of a specific body of knowledge, reliability. Plus, degrees have traditionally been the primary engine of social mobility, leading to higher, more stable pay.
Sure.
And crucially, they're associated with civic identity, public service, responsibility. We tend to trust our doctors, our judges, our teachers, partly because they went through that formalized credentialed training.
But this tension becomes a real cultural fault line, doesn't it? We seem to have a fundamental struggle to quantify the social value of, say, a musician who uses TikTok to reach 10 million people without a high school diploma versus a certified, highly trained teacher who earns significantly less but is, arguably molding the next generation.
That dissonance is often internalized, and it leads to serious misunderstandings. Our default cultural emphasis on formal credentials means we often unconsciously undervalue things like market recognition, entrepreneurial risk, and raw creative skills that operate outside those approved, structured channels. This is why you hear that common, sometimes painful conversation in families, right? The well-meaning relative asking the aspiring screenwriter or musician, why don't you just pick a real job? Something with steady income and benefits.
Right, the real job argument. The creative path is inherently risky, but it feels like we amplify that risk by maybe refusing to acknowledge its market value unless it hits that multi-million-dollar jackpot ceiling.
And that's massively amplified by visibility. The high visibility of celebrity success stories, the overnight millionaire influencer, the star actor, it hugely distorts public expectations. It kind of confirms this dangerous perception that if you're good enough, you'll make it big.
Yeah, the meritocracy myth.
Exactly. This narrative just completely ignores the vast skilled majority who are laboring away at that $16 an hour median wage we talked about. The success you see is often not a measure of pure ability. It's more a measure of platform amplification, timing, and maybe luck.
Okay, this leads us perfectly to the core mechanism driving all this money and volatility. We've established the market is brutal, but now we have to ask, who is actually controlling the levers of opportunity? And this brings us to section 3, the algorithmic ecosystem, the invisible director.
Right. If the creative market is like a feudal system, then the algorithm is kind of like the weather.
Okay.
It determines which crops, which creators will thrive and which ones will just wither. The core truth here, and it's a bit chilling, is that the most powerful director, the most effective storyteller in the world today, it isn't a human being. It's the machine. It's the algorithm.
And it does its job so well because it doesn't need to care or dream or have intentions. It just observes, curates, predicts, and nudges our behavior more effectively than we can consciously resist sometimes.
It employs something the source material calls predictive empathy. Now, the algorithm doesn't feel your joy or your sadness, obviously, but it simulates empathy perfectly because it measures the effects of those feelings on your behavior. It measures your soul, statistically speaking, by your click rate.
How does that measurement actually work in practice, like day to day?
It's just relentless A/B testing, essentially.
Yeah.
It serves you two different thumbnails, maybe two slightly different snippets of dialogue, two musical tempos. It measures which tiny variation makes you pause your scroll, which color causes a flicker of recognition in your brain, or which outrage-inducing statement maximizes your watch time.
Wow.
It tests these variations across millions, billions of users, learning that you react, even if it has no clue about the complex personal why behind your reaction. Every single moment of your attention is a data point teaching the machine precisely what to serve you next, until it no longer just follows your desires, it anticipates them and eventually starts to sculpt them.
That feels chillingly intimate, even though it's completely non-personal at its core. And the more we interact, the stronger these feedback loops of desire become.
Right. That's the engine right there. When you and millions of others linger on a certain type of video, say one featuring conflict or high emotional volatility, the algorithm notes this pattern and amplifies that style. This starts to standardize tastes and amplify collective behavior until it actually becomes cultural code.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of the YouTube recommendation cycle, which famously tends to reward increasing levels of outrage because confrontation just optimizes engagement metrics. Or think about Spotify's skip rate metrics, which heavily penalize long musical introductions because people skip them more.
Meaning the very structure of artistic production, like how long an intro should be, is being dictated by retention data. If controversy works, the platform rewards controversy, regardless of its truth or quality.
Absolutely. The myth of neutrality is completely shattered by this economic reality. The algorithm does not seek truth or fairness or artistic duty. Its singular binary goal is engagement. Full stop.
Just keep people watching.
Just keep them clicking, keep them watching. If amplifying conflict or spreading misinformation or rewarding extreme emotional states results in higher click-through rates and longer watch times, the system is fundamentally incentivized to do exactly that. Emotional volatility itself becomes an economic logic.
And what do we lose in that relentless pursuit of optimized engagement?
Yeah.
The courses talk about the joy of discovery, which leads us to the collapse of serendipity.
Yeah, serendipity is messy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's inefficient, it's unpredictable. Remember the old days of accidentally discovering a band on a friend's mixtape? Or stumbling onto some random foreign film late at night on TV, or just clicking a random channel on cable.
Yeah, flipping channels.
We have essentially traded that random, messy, beautiful discovery for predictive certainty.
The algorithm only offers what it knows. Statistically, you'll probably like based on past behavior.
Right. We trade genuine surprise for comfort and predictability. And the result, arguably, is often cultural stagnation. Our personalized playlists feel unique to us, but they're often just curated consensus, a safe statistical bet based on millions of other users' behavior. We start mistaking familiarity for quality, slowly, maybe imperceptibly, narrowing our cultural landscape.
And behind all this predictive power lies the data behind desire.
Yeah.
The system knows things about us we might not even consciously admit to ourselves.
The system knows us statistically, but it lacks the nuance of actual personhood. For instance, the system doesn't know that you are deeply lonely following a recent loss, but it recognizes that users in your demographic profile who exhibit similar scroll patterns and nighttime viewing habits tend to click longer on nostalgic, comforting media.
No.
It doesn't know your specific political stance, but it knows that angry people tend to watch political debates to the bitter end, which maximizes ad revenue.
This is that paradox of intimacy the sources highlight, isn't it?
It really is. The machine knows how you feel, whether you seem happy, angry, bored, because it can measure your behavioral response. But it absolutely does not know who you are, your values, your history, your dreams, your purpose. You are effectively rendered as a probability distribution, a profitable pattern of behavior, not as a person with inherent worth outside of your potential engagement metrics.
Okay, let's move our conversation now to Section 4. The psychological impact, the economy of emotion. If we're constantly feeding this algorithmic machine, how does this endless stream fundamentally alter, maybe even rewire, the architecture of our attention and our brains?
Well, it changes it completely, mainly because the entire design is rooted in this principle of dopamine as design. Think about it. Historically, entertainment had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right. The movie finished, the book was closed.
Exactly. The show went off the air. Modern algorithmic content, though, it never stops. It's optimized for a continuous dopamine cycle. Anticipation, stimulation, a brief transient satisfaction, and then an immediate repeat. Get ready for the next hit.
It sounds like it's engineered to keep us perpetually suspended in a state of almost satisfaction. Just enough of a hit to make you crave the next one, but never really enough to truly conclude the experience and feel fully satisfied.
Precisely. And like any reward system, the pleasure curve eventually flattens over time, right? You build tolerance. So to maintain that same level of engagement, the system has to constantly escalate novelty.
Oh, okay.
What was exciting 6 months ago becomes normal today. What was maybe shocking a year ago becomes expected. We're caught in this constant novelty arms race. And the sources draw a really powerful, maybe even uncomfortable comparison here. We call it content, but structurally and psychologically, it functions a lot like a controlled substance.
Wow.
Dosed in pixels, delivered on demand, and arguably designed for dependency.
And we often reach for this digital substance, seeking escape or comfort, which ironically seems to lead to what the sources call the comfort paradox.
Yeah, we consume entertainment to relieve stress, right?
Yeah.
To escape the mundane or the difficult parts of life. But constant high-stimulus consumption actually creates its own specific form of stress. The brain never fully enters a state of deep rest when it's being constantly fed novelty and decision-making prompts, even tiny ones like scroll or don't scroll. We might rely on comfort media like binge-watching nostalgic shows or listening to familiar songs, but this can easily become a form of avoidance. Instead of actually processing grief or anxiety or loneliness, we just buffer reality with curated joy.
Feels like rest, but it's really just a passive form of exhaustion setting in.
It is. The brain is still active, constantly processing, constantly reacting, constantly deciding whether to scroll or click next. That is not genuine rest. It's more like passive exhaustion in disguise.
And this endless stream of highly engaging content is often tied to specific people, which feeds directly into the parasocial mirror, these one-sided emotional relationships we form with creators, celebrities, influencers.
Right. We've moved far beyond just merely admiring celebrities from afar. We now have this sense of pseudo-intimacy with them. We might know a streamer's preferred coffee order, their daily anxieties, their relationship status updates, even their financial goals sometimes.
Yeah, it feels very personal.
It feels personal, but it's a one-sided emotional relationship where the viewer invests deep time and emotional energy into someone who, statistically speaking, have absolutely no idea they even exist.
But our ancient brain circuits don't really distinguish this very well, do they?
No, they really don't. When your favorite streamer shares a vulnerable, heartfelt story, your brain releases essentially the same chemicals, oxytocin, dopamine associated with real friendship and connection. This pseudo-intimacy feels powerful, feels real, but it comes at a potentially major cost. It can restructure our empathy.
How so?
It can pull our finite emotional energy away from the messy, difficult, unedited relationships in our actual real lives and redirect it towards these screens and these carefully curated performances.
And this exposure is constant, which inevitably creates the comparison trap and this authenticity illusion.
Yeah, we are just constantly flooded with highlight reels, aren't we? The perfect vacation, the massive career promotion, the flawless physique, the effortless-looking family life. Our ancient comparison circuits, which really evolved to manage social dynamics within a small tribe of maybe 150 people.
Right.
They're completely overwhelmed when suddenly exposed to the carefully curated marketing material of potentially 8 billion people online. It's almost impossible not to feel inadequacy and envy when you're constantly comparing your actual messy behind-the-scenes life to someone else's edited performance of perfection.
I think we all recognize that feeling, don't we? It's that little distortion you get scrolling past your 10th friend's amazing Bali vacation photo while you're making instant ramen at home. It's incredibly difficult in that specific moment to consciously remember that you are comparing your reality to their marketing material.
Absolutely. And this intense pressure to perform perfection, ironically, leads to the commodification of vulnerability itself. Even authenticity is now just another aesthetic, another style to perform.
The moment the camera is on, the performance sort of has to begin.
Realness has become a highly marketable genre, hasn't it? It's often tuned explicitly for engagement. That tearful confession about burnout or mental health struggles. It might not be raw, unfiltered truth. It's often a piece of content edited for maximum emotional retention and subsequent monetization through ads or sponsorships.
So when life becomes media, emotion itself becomes marketing.
Exactly. And we start to question, maybe subconsciously, whether our friends are sharing a genuine concern or if they're just executing a content strategy. It blurs the lines.
Okay, let's pull back then and look at the larger landscape in Section 5, the cultural and social consequences. We're moving from the individual brain now to the collective culture. And the first critical issue seems to be the cultural consequence of just using the word content.
Yeah, it's perhaps one of the most insidious words of the digital age, I think. Content. It just flattens all meaning, doesn't it? It makes a 40-minute, expertly composed symphony or a deeply researched documentary functionally equivalent to a 3-second video of a cat falling off a table.
If they both do the job.
They both successfully fill a slot in the feed and get engagement. The metric of engagement becomes the message itself. Meaning is secondary to performance.
Which means we are facing a massive quality versus quantity crisis in culture.
Totally. The economic system inherently rewards frequency over craft. A brilliant musician who spends a year creating one complex masterpiece is consistently buried in the feed by a creator who drops a maybe mediocre but algorithmically friendly track every single week.
Right.
Creators are under intense pressure to sacrifice depth, complexity, and artistic risk just for the sake of consistency and frequency. And this leads directly to a cultural paradox. We feel like we're drowning in content. There's so much stuff.
Endless stuff.
Endless stuff. But maybe we're starving for real, meaningful art because the system incentivizes consistency and predictability above almost everything else.
And what happens to the creative ecosystem when the focus is purely on achieving viral scale? We see something the sources call the death of the middle.
Yeah. Historically, the creative ecosystem had, an elite tier, but also a thriving, independent, middle ground. Think small studios, independent publishers, working artists who could actually sustain their careers without being superstars, and then you had the amateur fringe.
Okay.
The internet definitely empowered the fringe, allowing anyone to publish, which is great in many ways. But it seems to have simultaneously erased that crucial independent middle ground where a lot of experimentation, mentorship, and sustainable non-viral creative careers used to live.
So now you basically have the superstar, the person who goes viral, and then pretty much everyone else is invisible.
Exactly. It feels like there's only viral and invisible now. If a creator isn't large enough to successfully trend and capture significant platform revenue, they simply cannot sustain a career in many cases. The space for the independent working artist who never makes it big but could earn a decent living doing what they love, that space has largely vanished, or at least shrunk dramatically.
Now let's look at the social sphere itself, performing connection. If the full-time creators are essentially performers, then it seems like every ordinary user becomes a kind of micro-entertainer, constantly managing their own little stage.
Right. Every phone is a potential spotlight, isn't it? And the entire architecture of our social world online feels built for maximum visibility, not necessarily for genuine, nuanced, private conversation. This is the heart of what's called context collapse.
Context collapse. Explain that a bit.
It's the merging of all your different personal identities, your friend self, your colleague self, your family self, your high school acquaintance self, all into one single public-facing feed.
Oh, right. The mental load of trying to maintain all those often conflicting selves in one single online space must be exhausting.
It really is. It creates this chronic low-level performance anxiety. Every post, every story kind of has to be vetted for how the professional self, the casual self, maybe even the political self will interpret it. That constant self-monitoring is incredibly draining over time.
And friendship itself feels like it's increasingly gamified.
Yeah, metrics like likes, comments, follower counts, streaks on certain apps, they quantify what used to be intangible human connection. We might check in with friends less out of a spontaneous desire to genuinely connect, and more because we feel this subtle pressure to remain visible and active within each other's algorithms, just so we don't disappear from their feed entirely.
Wow. And even our moral stances, our ethics, get drawn into this content machine.
Definitely. Even ethics and social causes are often framed online for optimized engagement. The platforms tend to reward quick outrage, clear villain-hero narratives, and strong emotional clarity because those things trend easily and generate clicks and shares. So moral clarity itself can become almost indistinguishable from a content strategy.
And the tragedy is that people often still care deeply about these issues. But the act of caring online now often looks identical to the performance of caring for engagement. It's hard to tell the difference sometimes.
Very hard. And all of this ultimately seems to lead to what the sources term the new loneliness. Despite having theoretically infinite connection at our fingertips, global loneliness metrics are alarmingly high. And maybe part of it is that digital attention, by its very nature, is often shallow and transactional.
Hmm.
We might equate a rapid response or a high like count with genuine care, but attention doesn't equal understanding, and it certainly doesn't replace deep intimacy.
So the net result is maybe a culture that feels simultaneously intensely exposed, because everything's online, but also profoundly inauthentic, where real vulnerability feels too risky because it lacks the protective filter of a camera or an edit button.
Yeah, real intimacy requires inefficient things like time and presence and undivided attention, none of which are particularly rewarded by the current algorithmic economy.
Okay, that brings us to our final, maybe more existential reflection. We've mapped the colossal money involved, the invisible machines driving it, the psychological costs. Now, the final question the source material really poses is, what happens when the screen knows us better in some ways than we know ourselves?
Right. The screen acts like a mirror, but it's a mirror that actively watches back. It diligently reflects your patterns, your pauses, your fears, your predictable choices. It reflects them back to you. The system knows your habits inside out. It can probably predict what you'll watch at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep,
Yeah.
but it possesses absolutely zero capacity to understand why you couldn't sleep in the first place. The human context is missing.
That is the ultimate paradox of data intimacy, isn't it? Knowing the pattern, but not the person.
And it leads potentially to the disappearance of mystery. Mystery, the unknown, the inexplicable, the surprising, that was once central to human experience and creativity. But when predictive systems consistently feed us exactly what they think we already like, mystery just becomes an inefficiency to be optimized away.
We trade curiosity for comfort.
We do. We end up with a life potentially without surprise, which is statistically efficient for the platform, but arguably could feel profoundly meaningless for the human.
And in this process, our actual sense of self might begin to fragment.
Because each platform has sort of optimized a version of you for its own purposes. The algorithm stitches together these optimized fragments, the professional you on LinkedIn, the angry you on X, the tender, nostalgic you on Instagram. The resulting collage of clicks and engagements subtly shapes who you believe yourself to be. Identity becomes less about internal exploration and genuine discovery, and maybe more about seeking confirmation within the feedback loop of selfhood that the machine helps create and reflect back to you.
So, okay, after this really extensive deep dive, what does this all mean for us? For you, the listener who is actively participating in this system right now just by listening, if we connect this to the bigger picture, what are the key clarifying truths that emerge from all this?
Well, we think there are 3 key takeaways we really hope you carry forward from this.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, attention is the new gravity. It really is. It's the fundamental force that pulls culture, commerce, and human effort towards spectacle. Where attention gathers, value concentrates. The fundamental challenge for us now is recognizing that the algorithms have become incredibly good at imitating aliveness, and our greatest human skill must become choosing what truly deserves our limited, precious gravity.
Okay, number 2.
Second, the brain is ancient. Our cognitive structures, our wiring, evolved for a world of profound information scarcity where receiving attention often literally equated to survival. But in the digital age of abundance, visibility is often just exposure, not necessarily safety or connection. So the key modern skill isn't just raw intelligence or endless connection. It is discernment. It is knowing when to engage, when to pause, and when to deliberately, consciously step away from the feed.
Discernment. Okay, and the third.
Third, the next renaissance will be about attention ethics. We are, I believe, entering a new cultural and philosophical debate over what you could call mental sovereignty, our fundamental, maybe inalienable right to decide what enters our minds and what we choose to give meaning to, rather than having it dictated by engagement metrics. The ethical thinkers, the artists, the educators of tomorrow will likely be the ones who teach us how to use our attention well, again, not just to escape reality, but to fully engage with the difficult, beautiful, unedited world around us.
That final insight that closes our source material is perhaps the most motivating one. Freedom isn't necessarily achieved through total disconnection, which feels impossible for most people anyway.
Right.
It's achieved through awareness. You don't have to abandon the modern world entirely to preserve your humanity within it. You simply have to notice the mechanics as they are happening.
Yes. To pause before automatically obeying the next prompt, to choose something inefficient sometimes, something messy maybe, something completely unmonetized just for its own sake. These small acts of conscious choice are, in a way, the modern rebellion against the relentless demands of the attention economy.
So here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with, something for you to carry forward into your week, something to maybe mull on. The machine may know all of your statistical patterns, yes. But humans, when we are awake to our own choices, are still profoundly capable of breaking those patterns.
The next time you find yourself opening an application designed for infinite engagement, maybe just pause and consider this. What would you genuinely be curious about right now? What piece of information would you seek out? Or what thought would you choose to explore if you knew for certain that that thought would never be measured, never be sold, and never be recorded by anyone? What would you choose then?